Hi everyone, and thanks for clicking on the video. What I'm going to be doing today is setting up and fletching some indoor arrows for myself. I thought I'd turn the camera on and show you guys the way that I like to do these things. I have had pretty good success with vanes not coming off and all that sort of stuff. The process that I'll be using is pretty much the same as what I do with any other arrow that I've fletched before. I have, however, never fletched an aluminum arrow before, so we'll see how this holds up over time. The arrows that I'm going to be fletching today are Easton X23s, aluminium shafts in a 2315 size. Now I'll admit that I don't know a whole lot about aluminium shaft sizing and all that sort of stuff. I've just gone with what was recommended to me for the bow that I'm shooting. So don't look at this as an arrow guide for what you need to be setting up for your bow. This video is more just about the fletching, not tuning arrows for a particular poundage and draw length. So the wraps I'll be using, I've had custom made for me. They have the colors of an archery target on them, which I thought would look kind of cool. And then they've got my name, and they're all individually numbered as well. As for the vanes I'll be using, I'm actually going with 4-inch feathers. So the colors of the feathers are basically yellow, blue, and red. And I think they'll look good with the wraps. And the Easton shafts actually have a yellow, red, and blue ring around them as well, as you can see. So blue, red, yellow, yellow, red, blue. So I think together all of that's going to look pretty cool. So the other things I have on the table as well is I've pre-cut some paper towel that I'm going to be using some nail polish remover to clean the back ends of the shafts before I stick the wraps on. And then my fletching glue of choice is Loctite 401. It's what I've always used. Right at the beginning I tried a bunch of fletching glues and my luck with them weren't very good. So with the Loctite 401, ever since I started using that, I don't have vanes come off of shafts anymore. So if you're looking for a pretty good glue to use, my recommendation would be that one. But if you're having success with proper archery fletching glues and you have a specific type that you like to use, then that's fine as well. As for the jigs I'll be using, I have two Bitzenbergers. Now they don't have the Zenith upgrade in them yet. I have ordered those and they should be rocking up in the mail sometime soon. A good friend of mine, Steven Rosburg, also has an archery channel where he recently did a review on the Zenith upgrade for the Bitzenberger. So if you're interested in having a look at that, head along to his channel and have a good suss. I'll put a link to that in the description of this video as well. So that's pretty much it. I'm set up, I'm ready to go. I have everything on hand that I'll need. So I'll move the camera so that it comes in a little bit closer and talk you through how to put the wrap on and then fletching the first arrow. Yeah, so let's get started. Alright, so the first thing that I'll be doing is cleaning the back end of every shaft to make sure that we get a good glue bond between the wraps and the arrows themselves. So it's fairly straightforward. As I said, I like to use nail polish remover. It is an acetone, so if you have any issues or any concerns about the acetone on a carbon shaft, maybe dissolving the resin that holds the carbon together, in all honesty, unless you leave it soaking in there for a few days, it's not really going to have any effect on it. With the aluminium arrows, however, I really don't see any issue with it whatsoever. If you happen to know any different, feel free to let me know in the comments, and we'll find out what happens. Now, isn't that funny? Talk about squeaky clean, right? So that's the first one done. Alright, so that's the back ends of the arrows cleaned. Now the important thing is that you try not to touch that area with your fingers again, because you don't want to get your oils from your skin on there. It'll stop stuff from sticking properly. As you can see from the cloth, they were a little bit dirty, nothing too crazy, but I'd rather have that dirt out of the way and not pose a problem than have my wraps come off. So the next thing I'll need to do is obviously glue the wrap onto the shaft. Something to think about as well is the fact that you're going to be putting feathers on it. So you don't want your feathers covering your name up, which means that the orientation of your wrap is actually going to matter as far as putting it on the shaft is concerned. So what I'm going to be doing is making sure that this end is on the knock bushing side of the shaft. Also, what I'll be doing to try and make sure that I get the wrap on straight is placing it up against the edge of this paper towel. So my arrow will start rolling on the desk onto the paper towel, and if everything works out all right, it should be nice and straight and lined up on the shaft. So let's get that done. So we make sure that the knock bushing is lined up nicely with the end of the wrap, and we just roll it on like that. And then just make sure that there's no air bubbles, but there shouldn't be because we're using a squishy pad to roll the wrap onto the shaft. I just like to make sure that the edges are stuck down properly. And then we'll do the rest of them. And there we go. The wraps are all installed, and as you can see, they look pretty good in my opinion. So that's the wraps put onto the shafts. The next step is to give the wraps a bit of a clean, because I've been touching them with my fingers, and then after that we'll start gluing on the feathers. Now the jigs I'll be using, as I said, are my two Bitzenberger jigs, and I will be using the helicoil clamps as well. And I've already made a mark on the clamps for how far down I want the feathers to be. So if you're wondering how far down you need to put your vanes or your feathers, basically it is far enough down the arrow shaft so that when you're at full draw with your release aid or fingers or whatever it is that you're shooting, recurve, doesn't matter, you want the feather or the vane far enough away from the end of the shaft so that it doesn't get any face contact with you. So for each person that's going to be slightly different, depending on whether you have a beard or if you have full lips or all that sort of stuff. Your facial structure and your anchor point will make a difference. So that's something you'll have to work out for yourself. I'll get the camera set up again and show you guys how I fletch the first arrow. So one of the problems you might have with the Bitzenberger if you don't have the Zenith upgrade kit is the fact that you really have to worry about the orientation of the knock locator in the barrel with regards to the spine on your arrow. If you're the type of person who isn't too worried about spine matching every single one of your arrows, then it's something you don't need to consider. If you're using arrows where you can twist the knock to make sure that it lines up with your cock vane, obviously it's not going to be spine matched, but at least it'll sit right in the bow and clear your rest. So I've already made sure that all of this is set up so that my nocks are in the right place for the arrows, and the arrows, when they go into the jig, are set up correctly as well. So what I'll be doing now is showing you guys how I do the fletching. So when I put the arrow in, I've orientated my wraps so that they're in the same place as my cock vane, as you can see there. Let's just zoom in and show you guys what I'm talking about. So as you can see, my name's here, and then it's orientated so that when the clamp goes on, the cock vane is in line with my name. Now you can get as pedantic as you want with that sort of thing, or you can just get it done. It's completely up to you. I've got a little bit of an OCD thing when it comes to setting my arrows up as far as the aesthetics of the fletching job is concerned. So what I am also going to be doing is using the yellow feather as the cock vane, and then the next hen vane will be the blue one, and then the third vane or feather that I attach to the arrow will be the red one. So I have my colors in order so I can just work through them as I go. So as I said before, I do have a mark on my clamp, and that's pretty much where the base of my feather is going to start. So you just open up the clamp, put the feather in there, make sure it lines up with your mark, make sure it sits flush in your clamp like that, and then grab your acetone and give the base of the feather a clean to help the glue stick. So once that's done, you'll need a little bit of glue. As I said before, I use Loctite 401. You can use any fletching specific glue or anything like that. Obviously I didn't put this away properly last time because I've got a little bit of dried glue on the end. Alright, so the way that I put the glue on the feather is exactly the same way that I do it when I do it on a vane. What I like to do, we'll see if we can give you guys a good view. Focusing, yep. I put a drop there, and then I sort of drag it down the length of the feather, and when it starts to run out of glue, I'll give the bottle a little bit of a squeeze, get some more glue out, and keep going. And I do that until there's glue all the way down the feather. So hopefully that showed up, and hopefully that made sense. You can always sort of have a look and you'll be able to see if there's any dry spots on the feather as well. So the next step then, I place the clamp on the magnets like that. I push it down until it touches the barrel, and then I make sure the back end touches first, and I sort of roll it until the whole feather is touching the arrow. Then I make sure that I keep a bit of pressure on there. And once the glue's done its thing, I can take the clamp off. So that's the first arrow fletched. So as you can see, it's not overlapping my name, and hopefully all the rest of them will be nice and neatly in line with this black one, like that one is. So I'll do the next one now. which we said was going to be the blue one. So same thing, blue one goes into the clamp. Make sure the back end lines up with the same mark that you've already used, like that. Then we clean the feather. And we do the same process for the glue. So a little bit of glue and just sort of drag it along. Add more as you need. It really doesn't need a lot of glue. When I first started fletching arrows, I used to always put way too much glue on. That's when you end up with that sort of white haze over the whole arrow. Alright, so make the jig touch and roll it on. I like to put a little bit of pressure on for the first couple of seconds just to make sure that it gets a proper good bond. Now you don't need to press heaps hard, it's just basically to make sure that the thing seats properly. Now I did see Steve Rosburg has a trick for that as well, where he uses a plastic spatula or something like that afterwards to just squash the mating surface of the feather or the fletch down on the arrow shaft to make sure that if there are any air bubbles there, they get pushed out. It's a pretty good idea. I just don't have anything to do that with at the moment, otherwise I'd probably be doing that as well. So that's the second one glued on. And as you can see, it's lined up pretty nicely with the yellow one. And then we'll do the last vein. So now it's just a case of rinse and repeat. Basically, make sure the back end of the feather lines up with your mark you used before. Make sure it's seated in the clamp properly. Grab your cleaning rag. Give the feather a clean. Grab your glue. Remember not to put too much on. And the too much glue thing, it really is a case of trial and error. No one can sort of show you how to do that. Your first few arrows will look kind of weird unless you're just a natural. Then we put the clamp back on there, touch the barrel and roll it down to get the front end all stuck to the shaft. A little bit of pressure for a few seconds. And that's pretty much it. The other thing I like about the Loctite 401 is it dries very quickly. So it really makes the fletching job take a lot less time than you would normally with some of the other types of glues. Now, some people top and tail their feathers, which basically means they put a drop of glue at the very tip all the way around to make sure that the feather doesn't lift up, and they usually do the same thing on the back as well. So I'm going to do that, make sure that it all stays on there nicely. As you can see, that's a pretty nice job, even if I do say so myself. I think that it's going to look really nice. Hopefully they end up hitting the target. So we'll just do the top and tail. It literally is the smallest amount of glue, just to make a little bit of a ball over the end of the feather to glue it down, to reinforce it anyway. So super glue cures with moisture, like water or something like that. So you can get accelerants for it. I've never used them. I've never really felt the need. But if you want to do that, that's fine, you can. So that's the first arrow done. 5 more to go. I'm not going to explain what I'm doing for every single arrow, so I'll probably just fast forward that and then talk to you guys at the end. So let's get into it. So there you go, that's pretty much the process that I go through when I fletch an arrow. It's a little bit different to some other people. Some people like to use primer pens and accelerators and all that sort of stuff for a really nice glue job. If I had the money to spend, I'd probably go the same route, to be honest, but I do find that I get a pretty good result just doing it the way that I do. So as far as the arrows look, I'm pretty happy with that. I think they're going to look really nice. One can only hope that they will perform as good as they look. So yeah, let me know in the comments what you think of the color scheme. So that's it for today. Leave a like or a comment below, and if you haven't already done so, please subscribe to the channel and click on the little bell icon so that you get a notification each time I upload a new video. I hope you all have a great week, and remember, just do good shots.